Hi there and welcome to this week's vlog. When we go out in the car, it's our custom, or usually, to listen to the car radio, and we tune into UCB2, which is United Christian Broadcasters, the second of their channels. It's a national broadcasting organisation broadcasting Christian music and conversation here in the UK, and I think it's broadcast somewhere abroad as well. It's on digital radio and on the internet. We love listening to that. It's really encouraging and builds up. I was listening to an interview on UCB perhaps a few days ago, a week or so ago, and it was very interesting. The interviewer was talking to a lady who, with her husband, set up a Christian charity called, let me get it right, 5000plus.org, or 5000 plus. The website is 5000plus.org. That's a number 5000 plus plus.org. And she was explaining how they came to set up the charity, what was the motivation behind it really. And she said that she and her husband were in Nepal, and as they travelled around they noticed the desperate poverty in many areas in Nepal, and kind of filled with compassion and wondering what they could do, if anything they could do about it. And her husband, I think he was travelling, and he felt God say to him, let me just read this: the answer starts with what the people have, not with what they don't have. And generally, if we see people in poverty, if our hearts are full of compassion, we think about what they don't have, what they're struggling with, and how can we supply what they don't have. And yet what God seemed to be saying to this man's heart, the couple are called Rob and Jane Garrett. What Rob seemed to feel or sense God saying to him was, the answer starts with what people have, not with what they don't have. But he really struggled to kind of understand what was God saying to him in that. And so he kind of talked, I think they talked about it, prayed about it together, and they into their minds, in their hearts, came the story. Interestingly, it's a story, one of the few stories from the New Testament that are in all four Gospels, or one of the few miracles. And this is the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000. You're probably familiar with it, and it's where Jesus has been teaching the people for a long time, and it comes towards the end of the day, and the people are naturally getting hungry, and there's concern from the disciples. They say, Jesus, send them away so they can go and get some food for themselves. But Jesus simply says, you feed them. And the disciples say, well, we don't have food that can feed all this lot. It would take a year's wages or whatever. And so Jesus simply says this: what do you have? In other words, Jesus was looking not at what they didn't have, but what they did have. What have you got? And they brought forward, I think it was a young lad, wasn't it, who had 5 loaves and 2 fish. How's that going to help feed all these people? Of course, Jesus prays, and the bread and the fish are multiplied. So everybody it has enough to eat, and their hunger is satisfied. And one of the points of the story is that Jesus took just what they had and multiplied it. And so really one of the things that story teaches us is that when God calls us to a mission or to do something, he doesn't expect us to be what we're not. He just simply says to us, what have you got? Let me use that. And so Rob and Jane Garrett started this Christian charity, 5000 plus, and they used those principles to help people. And listening to what's happened since then, it's multiplied in many countries. Let me just tell you one story that Jane Garrett told in this interview. It was a lady who was very poor. I think her husband had died, and not only that, but another relative had died. So she had now a single mum with, I think, about 11 kids to look after, and she was very, very poor. She had almost nothing, but she heard about this principle. So what she did was she had one table in her, I don't know whether it was a hut or whatever, where they lived together. And so she sold the table to a neighbour, I think. And with the money that she got, she bought from the wholesaler some bottles of water. And so she took the bottles of water and started to sell them at a small profit. And so she built up a little profit, and she's able to use that to buy more water. And so the story developed. And so now I think she's trading in several different places and expanded the business. But it all started with not with looking at what she didn't have, but with what she had. She had a table she could sell and get the money and use that. And so this principle has been expanded and expanded, as I say, in many countries. And I thought that was a fascinating way of looking at how we help people who have very little. Don't look so much at what they don't have, but what they do have and how can that be used. And I think that that's the same with how God looks at us. I know when God called me many years ago into the Methodist ministry as an ordained minister, one of the temptations for me was to look at what I didn't have. I couldn't do that. I didn't have the abilities, the skills. But God simply said to me, as he says, I think, to all of us, look, I know what you like, but I just want you to offer what you have. And I will use that. And when you think about read the Bible, think about the strange and odd characters that God used who seemed to have very little. The disciples, many of them, we wouldn't have chosen them to be in our team, but God used them. Are we willing to give up the little we have so that God can multiply it and use it? So I want to leave that with you as a real encouragement. You may think you don't have a great deal to offer, but God only wants what you have, even if it seems a little, and he will use it and multiply it. So God bless you. Thank you so much for listening today.